When robots go out in public, it doesn't always end well. Many of you will be familiar with Hitchbot, who back in 2015 was unfortunately destroyed by some vandals while hitchhiking through Philadelphia. This phenomenon of robot bullying is pretty well documented in the HRI community. When people see robots out in public, especially kids, they have a tendency to want to mess with it, sometimes kick or punch the robot. My name is Dylan Moore, and the paper I'm presenting this year is looking at how we observe related behavior targeted towards autonomous vehicles. We have two primary contributions here. First, we wanted to publish video of this antagonistic behavior we observed towards autonomous vehicles in naturalistic field studies, similar to some of the earlier robot bullying work. And second, we wanted to propose speculative design principles on how to deter this behavior in the future. Now, in the United States, as autonomous vehicles have become more common, they have been vandalized in a few instances. We've seen even executives at Uber, saying people have bullied these cars. They feel they can be more aggressive because we won't take a position on it or will allow it. Autonomous vehicles are seen as easy prey, and that combined with a general threat or fear of autonomy or technology change in general has caused people to behave differently than we might expect. Now, in addition to this vandalism, I believe we will see what we want to call griefing, and we're adapting this term from online gaming, which describes intentional harassment of other players, kind of messing with people, causing distress among other players. We believe this is a more nuanced term than bullying because it's not as aggressive, it's not as extreme, and there's not really as ongoing a relationship as is often the case in the classical definition of bullying. So how did we get to this work? How did this work come about? Over the past few years, we've conducted field studies looking at how pedestrians might interact with autonomous vehicles. Now, to do this, instead of building a real autonomous vehicle, we had a Wizard of Oz setup. With this setup, we had a conventional vehicle that we put decals on the outside saying driverless vehicle and fake LiDAR on the top and cameras. So from the outside, the car was a pretty convincing illusion of a driverless vehicle. To hide the driver, we built a costume that looked like a car seat. And from inside this costume, the driver could control the vehicle safely, drive as they normally would, but overall, anybody outside of the car couldn't see inside, couldn't see a driver, and it was a very convincing illusion. What we'd normally do is we would drive around a loop, targeting a specific location, a crosswalk, or a point in a parking lot, like a normal driver. And we would interview pedestrians who interacted with the car at this particular point. So now I'd like to present the observations of this griefing behavior. We've recorded 10 instances in 20 hours of driving on real roads with real pedestrians. These studies were conducted in 3 different countries, the United States, Mexico, and the Netherlands. The Netherlands paper is also being published this year at HRI. So as you saw, we observed a pretty wide range of behaviors. Some people wanting to block the car, some verbal behaviors, and of course some physical behaviors as well. And I just want to dive into two of the clips that you just saw. The first is this one, which relates to the idea that some people believe that pedestrians will want to play a game of chicken with autonomous vehicles. And this particular student you saw, he actually did this multiple times as we were driving around. So he was seemingly playing a game of chicken by pretending to step in front of the vehicle. But don't just take my word for it. I actually ran into him at a party at Stanford, and he shared this video with me from his perspective of the car and how he was sharing it with his friends, saying, "I'm currently stuck in a game of chicken with an unoccupied driverless car, and it doesn't have the courage to destroy me." Now, of course, here he doesn't have any malintent. He's curious. He's having fun. He just wants to understand what the autonomous car is going to do. The most extreme case we saw was this brake-checking dark car that deliberately pulled in front of us. What you didn't see in the video is he actually saw us as we were going through a roundabout. He followed behind us a little while, pulled over to the side of the road, and then as we came around, pulled out in front of us again, and then brake-checked us multiple times. And so this is a pretty premeditated behavior if you think about it. But again, not necessarily malintent. He was just kind of curious as to what people were doing. So where do we go from here? We'd like to propose 4 design principles that might help to guide development in this space. First, we believe that autonomous vehicles should attempt to deter this griefing behavior to protect occupant privacy. An early adopter of autonomous vehicles might expect to see 2 or 3 instances of these a week. And so this could be a pretty big problem for autonomous vehicle developers. Second, autonomous vehicles should avoid behaving differently than other cars on the road. Anything, whether it's a light, a sign, a sensor, anything on the outside of a car that communicates that it's different from other cars on the road will invite this behavior. And so we believe that those should be minimized. Cars should behave as much like other cars on the road as possible. Third, assertive behavior could minimize trip delays. And that is something like a honk or even a subtle motion might be enough to say, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I'd like you to stop so I can go on my way." Rather than waiting for the pedestrian or the driver to get bored and move on, because sometimes that can take quite a while. Fourth, this is not limited to a particular location. We saw this in 3 different countries, and we do believe we could see this behavior kind of anywhere that autonomous vehicles are introduced. Now, we hope that these 4 behaviors do help to guide development in this space, and we also believe that they're more broadly applicable as well to robots. We've seen similar instances of behavior targeted towards robots that go into pedestrian spaces, public spaces, and so people might have been more aggressive towards robots in the past because the laws of physics are on their side. But these same behaviors could help to deter that similar griefing behavior in robots as it does in autonomous vehicles. So to make this future a reality, I believe that we should design for this behavior. With any luck, it'll be short-lived, but we won't know for sure until autonomous vehicles are introduced on the roads, as well as all the robots that will be delivering food and packages in the near future, we hope. I'd really like to thank all the researchers that have contributed to these studies. This has been work over the past few years of many people conducting these studies in 3 different countries. And so I want to thank everybody for all of their hard work in making this happen. And I'll just close with, I am very sad not to be able to discuss this paper with all of you at HRI this year. In lieu of that, I hope that you will reach out to myself or any of my co-authors to discuss this. Have you observed this in your own work? Do you have ideas for how to study it? Do you disagree with some of our design principles? We would love to hear from you, and we would love to continue the discussion next year. Thank you very much.